Hi guys, I just got let go from my job.
Hey everyone, welcome and welcome back to my channel. Inflation is at all-time high these days. Things are generally hard for people. People are losing their jobs very easily. So I came across a couple of videos and I decided to compile it. Here, people were talking about how they lost their jobs, the experiences they have had, and the lessons they have learned. So I figured out it might be helpful to some people and probably entertaining too. So I'm going to roll out the clips of the videos now.
Hi guys, I just got let go from my job. I wasn't expecting that this morning. So I'll be fine. I worked for Midday Squares in marketing. They had to let go of the marketing division, which is fine. It just came as a bit of a shock. I'm a strong believer that everything happens for a reason. Able to maybe make more TikToks and create more content for you guys. Oh, I'm gonna miss it. I'm really gonna miss it. It was amazing. And I've learned so much in the past 8 months. I'm still in the parking lot. I haven't moved because I actually don't know how I'm gonna drive home. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you guys and just be really real. This is life. And you gotta get up and keep grinding. If anyone's hiring in marketing, anyone knows anyone that's hiring a marketing specialist, I'm free. Onwards and upwards from here.
Okay. Guys, I got fired from my job. I walked into work, it was a normal day. I was even in a good mood. I was offering people coffee. Come on in, do you want a coffee? You're right. My spirits were up. The next thing, I'm getting called into the office and I was escorted off the premises. I fully looked and felt like a convict. This is not the story you think it is, by the way. This happened last year. So this time last year, I unexpectedly got fired from my job. I just did not see it coming. I've never been fired from a job in my life. I was really good at my job. I only ever got good feedback. I remember I was even saving up to move out just a few months after. Then yeah, one day I walked in and I was walked straight back out. Even though I was really good at my job, I didn't necessarily like my job. I worked in HR for about 3 years. So I knew my stuff. It was something that I could do, but I wasn't really passionate about it. Some mornings I'd wake up and I'd just be like, looking for the nearest bridge to just jump off. I always knew that I wanted to pursue influencing or content creation, just anything in the social media space. But I really never would have had the courage to actually quit my job to start pursuing that. So before then, I was just doing it part-time. I'd film sometimes on the weekends. At that point, I only had 6,000 followers or something like that. At this point, I was like, you know what? Let me just not go back to work. Try pursuing content creation full-time and see what happens. If there was going to be any time that I'd try it, it would have been then. So literally, as soon as I got fired, maybe just a week or two after, I got snatched up by my agency. Like I said, I didn't even have 10,000 followers. I had 6k, but my agents just said that they, thought I had potential. Clearly my agent could see something that I couldn't, because in a year, I gained 120,000 followers. So when I signed to them this time last year, I had 6,000 and now I'm on 126,000, which is a great achievement. So yeah, now social media is my full-time job. I'm a full-time content creator, way happier, earning way more than my job. And it all just happened in the right way. I definitely plan to keep going, of course. I think TikTok's going great, but my Instagram, guys, I need you to follow me on Insta as well. That's my next thing. I want to build that up too. But yeah, this is literally your sign to just go after your dreams and go after what it is that you want, because it's so achievable, more achievable than you think.
The last video we just watched, it might sound easier for some people to say once you've lost your job, you could focus on a passion or something that you really wanted to do, forgetting the fact that most people live paycheck to paycheck and most people do not have a saving of their own. So I am wondering, how are they going to survive during that waiting period, during that time that they invest in their passion project or whatever it is at all that they love. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that starting up something you love, it's not a good idea. However, there are times and seasons for everything. And I can even attest to that. For example, in social media, you need time, consistency, and a lot of effort to be able to level your ground. So what would happen during that period that you're trying to, sow in so you could reap? So it's definitely not going to be easy, but it's still worth it. However, people should have it at the back of their mind that this period, which is the waiting period, is not easy as it sounds. It's very, very hard. Anyways, let's get back to the video.
Did I ever tell y'all about that time I got fired from my job? Fired, laid off, either way, they told me to get on. I was a project analyst in the IT department at Habitat for Humanity International in Amber Ricketts, Georgia. I absolutely loved it at that job. I love the work. I love the people. I planned on retiring from that place. They started bringing in these bigwigs from up north. I thought they were like quality management people. They assigned this one lady to work in our department, and when I tell you, girl was cold, she was like Antarctica cold. I tried to be nice to her, but So I'm sure you all can imagine my surprise when I came in one morning and my office phone wasn't working. And I was like, I know we're here to help the less fortunate, but when did we become unfortunate? Just as I was going outside to ask my other coworkers if they were having troubles with their phone, one of the bigwigs came and said, Miss Mack, can we see you for a moment? And then they took me in that room and gave me the "It's not you, it's us" speech. I want to hear something crazy? As much as I loved that job, I didn't get sad. I knew everything was going to be okay, but y'all, it was hard for a while after that. Everything that happened then was God's setup for what we have now. My plan was to retire working for someone else, but God's plan was for me to retire after I've worked for myself. I guess I said all of that to say this. No matter where you are with your current work situation, what feels like the breaking of you is God's way of remaking you. So don't you dare give up, girl. It ain't what you go through, it's how you go through. So if you're going to trust God, baby, you better act like you know.
So I recently got fired and I made a get ready with me video and everyone is asking why I got fired. I was not going to talk about it because it's literally nobody's business, but everybody is asking about it and I don't mind sharing. I will explain how I knew and why I got fired. So I had been working at my job for 5 years. So I got the job because my sister had told me to apply there. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think I applied when I was 18 and I didn't start working there till I was 20, but I was still young and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. But I thought that it was something I could try out because I already had tried out warehouse, I've tried out food industry, retail, and so I thought the next step would be some type of office work. I was raised in a house where office work was like the best job you could do. So when I first started, there was a year of probation and every single day I was anxious that I was going to get fired. It wasn't the job that I thought it was going to be. I would cry a lot. I was really anxious about it and I literally thought I was getting fired every single day for a year. But everyone was saying that it was really hard to get fired once you get in the union. So I thought I'll just make it to a year and I'll be fine. I was doing pretty well at my job. I didn't have any issues. So I passed probation. After I passed, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulder and I was no longer as anxious as I was before. In the meantime, I was working on my social media. At the time I was doing makeup and I was posting on my YouTube channel, but I definitely wasn't paying too much attention to my social media. Quickly after probation, I got anxious again and I wasn't sure why. I was getting a lot of FOMO because all my friends were still out having a good time. We were just like barely 20 at the time, so many of my friends didn't have full-time like corporate jobs, but I was still doing well at my job. And then in 2020, we got sent home for COVID. We would still have our jobs when we came back. When everything shut down, we were sent home like, I believe March. Literally the day that I got sent home, I went to 3 different Dollar Trees and I did a huge haul on my YouTube channel. That video is still up on my channel, but it's what helped me get monetized on my channel. So literally right when they sent everyone home, I started getting paid on YouTube. During this like 3 months that I was at home, I was spending all my time posting on social media. I made TikToks, I made YouTube videos, and I was on Instagram all the time. I was making the most money I've ever made on my social media. I was getting thousands and thousands of views. I got over 15,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and I finally was like, okay, I have a purpose. But again, I grew up in a family that was all about like the office type of job, so this is what I thought I had to do because there was benefits, retirement. I just felt like I needed this full-time job. Looking back at it now, I probably should have quit then, but honestly, it brought me so much anxiety to even think about that. So after making the most money I've ever made on social media, I went back to my full-time office job, and that's when I started experiencing the most depression I've ever had.
I mentioned something about being anxious during her 1-year probation period, which I must say is a very long time to be on probation, honestly. And you know, it made me go down the memory lane. Back then when I was in school, broke, sad, you know, I got a job with a cleaning company and the manager told me that I had to be on probation for 1 month, during which if I didn't do well, I'm not going to get the permanent job. And I remember being very sad, being very anxious during those periods because I mean, I didn't want to lose the job eventually and then work for free for that 1 month probation period. And it wasn't really a good experience. And in hindsight right now, they really did take advantage of me, but I guess that's in the past. So let's get back to the video.
Really good employees get fired every single day, and it's usually for one of the following 3 reasons. My name is Craig Levy, and I'm an employment law attorney. First, their supervisor sets them up to fail. You can be the most effective employee in the world, but if your supervisor or someone in upper management doesn't want you to succeed, you're going to get fired. Second, they become too expensive. Oftentimes, an employee that is effective can negotiate a higher pay, and if the company isn't doing well financially, they're the first to go. And third, unreasonable expectations for that employee. Sometimes a company will bring a high performer in, pay them a lot of money, and expect them to move mountains. And when that doesn't happen, the company will part ways with them. But a really good employee recognizes they performed well and it was outside of their control, so they move on to the next job.
So I got fired, no cause, just vibes. And when I was like, why is this happening? They were like, well, it just seems like you're not really invested long term. Like, it seems like you really don't like your job. And I was like, yeah, of course I don't like my job. Since when are we supposed to like our jobs? I thought you just bootstraps it and just muscle through the day like my Republican dad told me. What? God, corporate America is just getting out of control.
3 things to do if you're fired. Now, this sucks. If you're fired, I'm sorry, because job security is so important. It's a privilege to have a job, and it's always terrifying when we lose our jobs, and full of emotions and full of questions about what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? In Ontario, though, employers don't even have to tell you a reason why they fired you, as long as they fire you without cause, which means they have to give you some sort of notice. Now, probably they're not going to give you as much notice as you're owed. So here's 3 things you should do right away. I'm Nicole, and I'm a human rights lawyer. I help people when they've been fired from their jobs. Number 1, you should immediately start to apply for EI, employment insurance. Now, I'm talking Ontario, but there's probably similar provisions throughout Canada. So as soon as you've been terminated, you're going to receive a record of employment, and you should apply for employment insurance, because if you don't, you may lose your chance later on. Number 2, you need to be aware of something called the duty to mitigate. This is about reducing your loss. So that means that as soon as you're fired, you need to start job searching, looking for a new job. You don't have to take any job that's out there. If there's a job that comes up and it's not good pay, or it's just not right, or it's out of town, that's okay. You don't have to take it. You don't have to apply for it, but you do need to try and make a best effort to get a new job. Keep a record of all your efforts. If you do a job search on Indeed, then do a screenshot and keep that in a folder called job search. Every time you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn, whatever you're doing, make sure that you're keeping a record of that, or even journaling, like on this day I fixed my resume, on this day I met with somebody about my cover letter. Keep a record of that, because you're going to need it later to show that you tried to reduce your losses, because your employer doesn't want to be on the hook for loss just because you sat around and didn't try and get a new job. Number 3, reach out to a lawyer. I know that during this time, it must be difficult to even imagine how could I afford a lawyer, because I've just lost my job and finances are a huge issue, but you stand to get a lot more. Usually lawyers will charge a small set consult fee. In that consult fee, they'll explain things, and most lawyers will at least write a demand letter trying to get more of what you're owed in terms of notice periods in lieu of pay. And they will be able to do that on contingency fee, or a mixed contingency fee and hourly rate. There are creative ways that you can be able to afford this. So don't let that be a barrier to you getting justice from your employer and getting what you were owed. Follow along for more.
So yesterday I was fired from a job I really liked, and I'm always on here creating content about the positive sides of freelancing, and I never talk about this. So I want to talk about it. Basically, I just want to recap the mistakes I made so that I can learn from them, and you guys can too. First mistake is pretty on in the relationship. I could tell it was going to be a far bigger workload than I had expected, and I didn't say anything. So instead of telling the client, hey, this is more than I anticipated, hey, I don't have the infrastructure needed to manage this, I kept my mouth shut. If I brought it up to the client, we probably could have found a solution, but instead I was stubborn and I didn't say anything. When I noticed that it was going to be too much work, which leads into mistake number 2, I could have also just brought on help to help me with that additional work instead of trying to do it all myself. If there's one thing that's become obvious in the last like 4 to 5 years of doing this, is that people are far more understanding than you expect them to be. So if you're just honest with a client about what's going on or about your workload or whatever it is you need support with, they'll usually support you. This experience has really drilled that lesson in.
Anytime I'm feeling like super confident about myself, I remember that I got fired from the cafe I worked at in college that paid me $7 an hour, and I figured out a way to get fired. First of all, learning the drinks and having them all memorized, that felt a little bit like homework to me. And remember, we were getting paid $7 an hour, so am I gonna do homework for a $7 an hour job? Absolutely not. No, I'm not. If you were ordering the same drink from me 2 days in a row, you're getting 2 completely different food groups. It was a mystery what ingredients that I was using on these drinks. And I was never allowed to work alone because like, people knew I was just not good at my job, and that was just a given, obviously. One day by mistake, one of the new managers didn't know me yet, so she asked me to train 2 new employees. Biggest mistake of her life. I was like, Stacey, they don't even let me behind the counter by myself. Are you sure? I didn't say that part to her. I said, oh my God, yeah, I've been waiting for this day my entire life. Give me the new employees. At this point, by the way, I already have 2 strikes. So if I get one more strike, I'm fired. So I'm looking at these, she hands me these 2 new employees and it's their first day. And she goes in the back and I'm like, look at me. You better not mess this up because it's my job on the line right now. And I need these $7 because that's like 3 lemon drop shots. So I'm teaching these people how to make drinks the way I make drinks, which is just basically like a remix of the real recipe written by me. I'm thinking it's going pretty well until the first drink that goes out, someone complains. First drink. He comes up to me and he was like, excuse me, is there a reason that my drink is spicy? And I was like, spicy? Spicy's not even a flavor that we have. What did you order? And he was like, a macchiato. And I was like, a macchiato? That's a you problem. What is a macchiato? Why would you order that? Get out of my cafe. I'm so sick of you, I'm serious. So that was the first time someone reported the drinks being spicy. This kept happening the entire night. And to every customer, I was like, I'm so sorry, we have these 2 new hires. They don't know anything. They know nothing. So I kept having to refund people's drinks because I couldn't figure out what was spicy about all of these. Every drink was spicy. I was like, you 2 are ridiculous. I thought I was bad. It seems like no one wants to work these days. Get it together. The next day at work, the real manager was like, Becca, after you left last night, the new hires were putting sugar-free peppermint in every vanilla latte that they made. And I was like, sugar-free they sound terrible, terrible. Do you fire them? Should have. That's also when I remembered that the sugar-free peppermint is the same color as the vanilla bottle. Turns out I had taught the new hires that the peppermint bottle was the vanilla, so they were putting that in every single drink. But who has 2 flavors be the same color? And since when is spicy bad? I like spicy things. I'd like a spicy latte. So yeah.
I don't know about you, but I'm getting really tired and kind of depressed at the moment. I'm 32 years old, almost 33 this year. And I recently got laid off at a company that I worked at for almost 6 years. Being unemployed sucks. It sucks. There are some good sides to it, like a lot of time to do your own thing, but being unemployed and not getting money still sucks. Not to mention that it is extremely hard to apply and get a job, let alone an interview anywhere. Constantly, I keep getting told that I need to try harder or work harder and just work more to get the interview and whatnot. It is extremely hard to get an interview. Really hard. And I don't think that people who are employed at the moment know how hard it is to get noticed. Honestly, it also doesn't help when I go on job sites like LinkedIn and Indeed, especially LinkedIn, because instead of applying to a lot of jobs, I'm at the point where I'm just looking at a lot of people that I've known and friends that I've known since a long time. How should I say this? I end up comparing myself to all of them, and then I get even more depressed, and I just end up in this rut where I feel unmotivated to even look for any more jobs. I'm also a really introverted person, so I don't want to just take any job that I see, and I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. I don't know. Maybe I should just sell my feet pictures. I don't really care anymore.
I also want to mention that sometimes employees get fired because they are just terrible and nonchalant about their jobs. I've also had a fair share of my experience where I had a fellow employee who was just typically very bad. She didn't want to learn. She was just there because, the job was paying. Also, I just generally want to say that things are really hard these days. We should try and be kinder and nicer to people. Just imagine not having where to get your next meal from because you're jobless. And it could be different for some people. They could be jobless and they have a passive income where they're earning money. But I believe that most people do not have passive incomes where they earn money from. So I think it's generally a bad experience. Anyways, let's get to the rest of the video.
Literally just a job. So it turns out it literally is just a job, and it's corporate, so everyone is replaceable. So unfortunately I just got laid off after 2 months and 3 weeks. So if anyone knows anyone hiring, let me know. It has not been a good Monday morning. It has been a terrible start to this week, and I am very, very frustrated right now. So if you know anyone hiring, let me know, because I'm very upset. And I don't know what to do. But I guess it's just a job, so I guess I'll go find a new one.
This is the story about how I was the absolute worst employee and could not work for anybody else. I figured I would tell the story while I get ready because I just have a lot of stories about how I was a really bad employee. First of all, I'm using the Laura Mercier and mixing the YSL tinted foundations together because they're just a really good mix, but I don't want to use a lot because I'm actually having a really good skin day. So I probably had 4 to 6 jobs before this was my full-time job of just working for other people and trying to make that work. Obviously, I needed money. I was a nanny. I worked in restaurants. I worked for a girl's company. It was like a PR company. Let me start out by saying that I got fired from every single job I ever had before this one. I was in the restaurant business. I guess I was younger, and I guess I just had a really big problem with authority. I was so bad at taking advice from people, and this is just me being probably young and dumb and not realizing that you have to go through things to get to where you want to be. And of course I was just too stubborn, and I remember the one time I was working in a restaurant and I threw this rag of food and the food splattered everywhere, and I got fired the next day because of attitude. So this probably happened to me in about 4 different restaurants that I worked in. I think I didn't last longer than a week at each restaurant. It makes me sound like a really bad person or bad person to work with. I think it's because when I was young, I just had an authority problem, but also I never wanted to work for anybody. I always wanted to work for myself. I was just trying to figure out how to do that. Next, we move on to nannying, and I actually was pretty good at this, but it took me a few different nanny jobs to kind of get it down before the adults and the parents liked me. One thing I need to add is that I got fired for not ever being late or not being on time. I have always been good at being on time and doing what I say I'm gonna do. It's maybe just how I've done it in the past. Fired from babysitting jobs because of the outfits I would wear, and I didn't think about it, but I would wear workout outfits, which were leggings, spandex, stuff like that. And at the time I was I'm not gonna change what I wear to please your family. And now looking back, I'm it was a job, I had no say. So I worked for a girl who owned her own PR company, and at the time, I still to this day don't think this was totally my fault. Never trained any of the girls, and we were so chaotic in the office, and we never knew what was going on. We didn't know what we were supposed to be doing, and I got fired for basically not following her direction. 70% of it was her being a bad boss. Here, owning up to being a terrible employee back in the day, but it did get me to where I am today. Of course, this is just my experience. I know some people are great employees, but it wasn't for me, and I was able to figure it out how to work for myself. But yeah, it turned out that I did turn out okay with all of the stuff that happened, but I think it's funny to look back on all the jobs that I had and be oh wow, I literally got fired from everything. So that is my story on how I was not ever able to keep a job.
Well, we've come to the end of today's video. If you have any suggestions, if you've had any experience with getting laid off, or you have learned some lessons, I would really appreciate it if you put it in the comment section down below so that others can learn. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and I'll see you next time. Bye.